The ocean waves crashed against the shore as I stood on the deck of my grandmother's beach house for what seemed like the last time. Or at least that's what Victoria Thompson, my mother-in-law, thought. I'm Sophie Chin, and this is the story of how I outsmarted one of Boston's most ruthless real estate moguls at her own game. The house had been in my family for 3 generations. My grandmother, a brilliant contract lawyer, had purchased it in 1975 for what now seemed like an impossibly low price. Back then, this stretch of Massachusetts coastline wasn't the luxury haven it had become. She'd seen its potential long before the millionaires and their mega mansions arrived. Remember Stuffy, she used to tell me during our summer visits in law and in life, the devil is always in the details. She taught me to read every contract carefully to understand that sometimes the most important clauses hide in the smallest print. I never imagined how crucial those lessons would become. I inherited the house when Grandma passed away 2 years ago. By then, I was already married to Michael Thompson, son of Victoria Thompson, the CEO of Thompson Luxury Properties. Our marriage had been a whirlwind romance. Me, a commercial property lawyer, him, the charming heir to one of Boston's largest real estate empires. Victoria had opposed our marriage from the start. Old money doesn't mix with new, she'd sniffed during our first meeting, eyeing my simple outfit with barely concealed disdain. She never let me forget that I'd grown up in a middle-class family, that my parents were teachers who'd sacrificed everything to put me through law school. But it wasn't until I inherited the beach house that her true colors showed. The property, now worth over $12 million thanks to the area's development, had become her obsession. It was the only piece of prime beachfront her company didn't own in their planned luxury resort development. Think about your future with Michael, she'd say, her voice dripping with false concern. This house is holding back the whole family's prospects. She'd offered to buy it, of course, at less than half its market value. When I refused, the pressure began. First came the accidental construction damage from Thompson Properties' nearby projects. Mysterious cracks in the foundation, broken windows from stray debris. Then the tax assessments. Suddenly, my property was being valued at nearly double its actual worth, making the taxes almost impossible to afford on my lawyer's salary. I knew Victoria had friends in the city offices, but proving it was another matter. Michael, caught between his wife and his mother, tried to play peacemaker. Maybe we should sell, Sophie, he'd suggest, gently. Mom's offering a fair price considering the property's condition. The property's condition, which had mysteriously deteriorated only after I'd refused Victoria's offers. But I held firm, remembering my grandmother's stories of how she protected this house through decades of attempted buyouts and legal pressure. The house wasn't just property. It was a symbol of everything she'd achieved as a woman-in-law when female lawyers were rare. She trusted me to protect it. Then came the night that changed everything. Victoria invited us to dinner at her mansion in Beacon Hill. A family reconciliation, she called it. I knew better, but Michael insisted we go. The dining room was intimidating, all dark wood and crystal chandeliers. Victoria sat at the head of the table like a queen holding court, her silver hair perfectly styled, diamonds glittering at her throat. Sophie, darling, she began, gesturing for her lawyer to hand her a folder. I think it's time we resolve this unfortunate situation. She slid the property deed across the table. Sign it over to Thompson Properties and all our problems disappear. $5 million in cash, plus a guaranteed position as junior counsel at our firm. I looked at the deed, then at Michael, who suddenly seemed very interested in his wine glass. And if I refuse? Victoria's smile turned cold. Then I'm afraid things will become very unpleasant. The city is investigating structural concerns about your property. Environmental issues. The place could be condemned. She leaned forward. And Michael? Well, he has a bright future in the family business. It would be a shame if this situation affected his inheritance. My husband's face paled. He wouldn't meet my eyes. You have 10 minutes to decide, Victoria announced, sliding an expensive pen across the table. Sign, or we'll destroy you both professionally and financially. I have friends in every law firm in Boston, dear. Good luck finding work after this. I picked up the deed, scanning it carefully as Victoria watched with barely concealed triumph. Page after page of legal language, transferred ownership, terms and conditions. Then I saw it. Page 7, subsection C, paragraph 4. My grandmother's secret weapon. hidden in plain sight. I smiled and reached for the pen. Wait, Michael finally spoke up. Sophie, you don't have to. It's fine, I said calmly, signing my name with a flourish. Your mother wins. Victoria's laughter echoed through the dining room as she snatched up the deed. I knew you'd see reason eventually, though I must say, I expected more fight from you. If only she knew what was coming. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Victoria wasted no time announcing Thompson Properties' acquisition of the final beachfront parcel. Architectural plans were drawn up for a luxury resort. Michael grew increasingly distant, torn between guilt and relief. I waited. Victoria had scheduled a grand press conference to announce the resort development. Local media, investors, city officials, everyone who mattered in Boston real estate would be there. The morning of the press conference, I sat in my office downtown, watching the live stream on my computer. Victoria stood at the podium, resplendent in a designer suit, discussing her vision for the property. Then her lawyer rushed onto the stage, face ashen, clutching page 7 of the deed. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about fighting back immediately. It's about letting your enemies walk right into the trap they set for themselves. My grandmother taught me that, along with the secret that was about to bring Victoria Thompson's empire crashing down. The look on Victoria Thompson's face when her lawyer whispered in her ear was worth every moment of humiliation I'd endured. Through my office computer screen, I watched as her practiced smile crumbled, replaced by something between rage and disbelief. What do you mean, historic preservation clause? She hissed, forgetting her microphone was still live. I smiled, opening my grandmother's old diary. The relevant page was marked with a faded blue ribbon. April 15, 1975. Filed the Historic Preservation Covenant today. Ironclad, buried in the deed restrictions. Any future owner must maintain the property in its original condition. No demolition, no major alterations. The perfect protection against the developers who think money can buy everything. My grandmother, it turned out, had been playing a very long game. The covenant was buried in that infamous page 7. Subsection C, paragraph 4. A legally binding historic preservation clause that ran with the land, not the owner. It didn't matter who owned the property, they couldn't tear it down or significantly alter it. The house had to remain essentially unchanged, protected by state historic preservation laws. Victoria's $100 million resort project was dead before it began. I gathered my things and headed to the press conference. After all, I had a front row seat. Victoria's team had invited me, probably hoping to see me squirm as she announced her triumph. When I walked into the hotel ballroom, chaos reigned. Victoria was huddled with her lawyers, her face thunderous. Investors were making angry phone calls. Reporters were already sniffing out the story. Thompson Properties' major resort project derailed by hidden deed restriction. You knew, Victoria snarled when she saw me. You knew about this the whole time. Of course I knew, I replied calmly. I'm a property lawyer, Victoria. Did you really think I wouldn't read every word of my own grandmother's deed? The grandmother who, by the way, was one of Boston's most respected real estate attorneys. This is ridiculous, she snapped. We'll challenge it in court. Historic preservation claims from the 1970s. Please. By all means, I smiled, opening my briefcase. Here's the original covenant filing, properly recorded with the Registry of Deeds. And here's the property's listing in the State Historic Register, dated 1976. Oh, and these are letters from 3 different preservation societies, all supporting the house's historic status. I laid the documents on the table one by one. My grandmother believed in thorough documentation. Victoria's lawyer was scanning the papers, his face growing increasingly pale. Mrs. Thompson, he said quietly, the covenant is ironclad. It was properly filed, properly recorded, and has been continuously enforced. Any challenge would be futile. Then we'll sell it. Victoria nearly shouted. We'll take a loss, but... About that, I interrupted. Subsection D restricts future sales. The property can only be sold to direct descendants of the original owner, my grandmother, or reverts to a historic preservation trust. I paused. I suppose I should thank you for saving me the trouble of explaining this to all your investors at once. The ballroom had gone silent. Everyone was watching our confrontation. Reporters, investors, city officials. Victoria's carefully cultivated image of business invincibility was crumbling by the second. Why? She whispered. Why let me go through with the purchase if you knew? Because you needed to learn that money doesn't always win. That all your connections and threats and manipulations can't overcome someone who knows the law and stands their ground. I gathered my documents. Oh, and because you forced my husband to choose between his inheritance and supporting his wife. How's that working out? Michael had just walked in, taking in the scene with wide eyes. He looked from his mother to me, realization dawning on his face. The house, he said slowly. You protected it. All this time, you were just protecting what your grandmother built. Victoria turned on him. Don't you dare take her side. After everything I've done, everything you've done. Michael's voice rose. You mean like threatening my wife's career? Damaging her property? Forcing me to choose between my marriage and my inheritance? He walked over to stand beside me. I choose my wife. Victoria sank into a chair, her empire of intimidation collapsing around her. The reporters would have a field day. Boston's biggest real estate mogul, outsmarted by the daughter-in-law she tried to destroy. In the weeks that followed, the story became a legend in Boston legal circles. Victoria's investors pulled out of Thompson Properties in droves, uncomfortable with her tactics once they came to light. The mysterious property damage stopped. The tax assessments returned to normal. Michael and I moved into the beach house. He's learning to surf, something he never dared do when his mother was controlling his life. We're talking about starting a family, raising our children in the same rooms where my grandmother taught me about justice and standing up for what's right. Victoria still won't speak to us, but her power over our lives is gone. Last week, she announced her retirement, citing health concerns. Thompson Properties is being restructured, with Michael as the new CEO, implementing more ethical business practices. As for me, I started my own law firm, specializing in protecting historic properties and small property owners from predatory developers. My grandmother's diary sits on my desk, a reminder that sometimes the best defense is built decades in advance by someone wise enough to see the future. The beach house stands proud on its stretch of sand, unchanged by time or greed. On quiet evenings when the sun sets over the water, I sit on the deck and read through my grandmother's old legal files, discovering new layers of her brilliance. Remember Sophie, she wrote in her last letter to me, the law is meant to protect what matters, not just property, but principles. Use it wisely, and it becomes a shield that no amount of money can break. Last month, a young lawyer came to me for advice. Her family's small restaurant was being threatened by a large developer. As I helped her find the legal tools to protect her heritage, I saw my grandmother's legacy living on. Michael joined me on the deck yesterday evening, watching the waves roll in. You know, he said, I never understood why this house meant so much to you until now. It's not just a building, it's a statement that some things aren't for sale. I leaned against him, smiling. Your mother taught me something too, I said. Sometimes when people show you who they are, the best response is to let them keep talking while you quietly read page 7. The house will outlast us all, protected by my grandmother's wisdom hidden in plain sight. Victoria learned the hard way that true power doesn't come from money or connections. It comes from understanding that justice, like the perfect legal clause, only needs patience and principle to prevail. Every morning, I walk along the beach, watching the sunrise paint the old house in shades of gold. Developers' plans come and go, but some foundations, like truth, love, and carefully written covenants, are built to last forever. And somewhere, I like to think my grandmother is smiling, knowing that her legacy lives on in both the house she protected and the granddaughter who learned to fight with wisdom instead of wealth. As for Victoria, they say she's writing a book about real estate development. I sent her a note suggesting she pay special attention to page 7 of her publishing contract. Some lessons, after all, take time to sink in.